and welcome to my YouTube channel. So I'm going to walk you through how I've edited one of my images that I took recently when we were on the Isle of Harris, and just to walk you through the tweaks and the options that I use to bring quite an underexposed image up into an image that is potentially usable. So join me and let's see where this journey takes us. We've opened up our image, and as you can see, it's very dark. We've got a lot of kind of halos on the corner because of the way that I stacked the filters as well. So what I want to do first is I want to take a copy of the image. So if I unlock it, drag it down, and then I've got a copy. On my layer copy 0, if I go filter, camera raw, now I'm in camera raw module. If you use Lightroom, you notice that a lot of the features are exactly the same as Lightroom. Camera raw is really good to access very quickly from Photoshop if you're working in Photoshop. So first of all, what I'd like to do is just lift this, brighten the scene, and then all these rocks here that are really dark, lift the shadows in these rocks. I'll show you about how to use the masks, how we do that. So first of all, if I go back and if I do just a quick adjustment and lift the exposures, I don't need to touch contrast. If I pull back the highlights just a touch, I don't want to pull up the shadows too much because I'll show you how I lift the shadows in a little while. Just increase the whites and pull back the blacks. Now I might just keep the black at probably +5. I don't want to push the whites up too far in case I take the highlights out the sky. Right, so that's my base image. So what I want to do now is I want to lift these shadows, but I need to isolate the shadows. So if I use the masking tool and I select radial dial, if I then just create a radial circle, now what I can then do is lift the exposure and then lift the shadows, pull back the highlights, and what I can also do is I can warm up the tone of the colours on the rocks. Now if I want to, I can make this a wee bit more specific and then just lift the radial mask further up so that I've got that top cluster of rocks. So I want to do the bottom cluster of rocks. So select the radial dial, the radial mask again. I'll pull this down, and again I'm just going to push this out a wee bit wider to about here. Right, again I'm just going to tweak the exposure, lift the shadows, not too far, pull back the highlights, might just tweak the blacks and push the light. So I'm just moving the mask around to get to a position that I like. Right, what I want to do now is, I'll just move that back, is warm it up. So like I did the last time, just increase the yellows, the temperature, and then that way we've got a kind of glow. Right, I've got a wee tip to show you just now. If I select a brush mask, now you can use your square keys, left and right keys, to increase the size of your brush. But one tip is, if I select the brush, before I select the brush, I need to know what I'm doing. I want to darken that sky and I want to reduce the highlights. Not too much, but I want to reduce the highlights, but I want to warm it up. So the quick thing to do is put your brush mask over the top right, and then put your finger down on the shift key, drag it over to the far left, and then press click. And then go further down, press the shift key, keep your finger on the shift key, and then that selects the whole top area of your image. So I can now pull back my highlights, I can lift the whites just a touch, and then what I want to do is add in a little bit of warmth into that sky, not too much so I don't lose the blues. If you want to give it a wee bit of warm up, just tweak the temperature up with the reds. So that's just a quick tip of how you can use the brush tool. What I want to do now is I want a global adjustment now. So I'll look at colour and I'll just tweak the warmth, just push up the vibrance just a touch. I don't need to touch saturation at this point. If I go to effects, I'll just tweak the texture, not too much. I might have a look at the dehaze, because the dehaze will give us a wee bit extra contrast. Again, not too much there. And then what I then want to do is go to the colour mixer. I might tweak, there's not a lot of aquas in this image, so I'll just leave that. I shall change the luminance of the blue, not too much because it's starting to make it a wee bit fake. If I go to saturation, and if I just move the sliders, there's not a lot of difference actually. If I push the blues, most of the blues are in the water, so that's not really going to be that much of an impact. If I push the orange slider up, I get some oranges. Push the yellows, that impacts the seaweed in the rock area. Right, okay, so now I've adjusted the colour mixture. What I want to do is, so now if I go into curve and select curve, what I've got is these global adjustments across my whole image. So I can just pull down the highlights just a bit. I can tweak and push up my light option. Just pull back my darks because that's giving me a wee bit more definition here in the rocks. Just push up the shadows a little bit. So one last tip. Right, I'll go back to my light where I've got my exposure, and this is where I'm going to impact and affect the whole image. So if I just slide the exposure back the way, just a tad, to about here, then if I go back into mask and I select a new radial mask, and if I just get quite a large area, so you can effectively do this using a vignette as well, but this helps you enhance the colours, and it actually makes your colours pop quite a bit. So if I now push up the exposure, if I then increase the whites, pull back my highlights just a bit, and as you'll start to see, that central area is starting to pop quite a bit. Now what I can do is just push up the saturation just a bit, and there, if I go back to my global inputs, then we've got an updated image. So if I select OK, that takes me back into Photoshop, because what I want to do now is I want to show you that if we are using this image, I need to take the vignetting off the corners. So if I go in and I select these corners, what I'm going to do now is use generative AI. So if I just slide that over, and then so if I slide this over, I made a mistake there and I'll explain what I've done. Right, now in order for me to select two corners, if I hold down shift before I select the selection lines again, there we go, and in this bottom corner, if I hold down the shift key, and then that now gives me three corners. I've still got my finger on the shift key and I'm selecting the bottom right corner. Now I've got all four corners highlighted. If I select generative fill and hit generate, let's see what options we get. Okay, so generative fill has done a really good job, but first off, the second option, let's see what difference we get. Well, that's quite nice. The third option, actually I think I will go with the first option. So all I need to do here is do Command E or Control E, and then there we have it. We've got our image. Now, I'm not finished there. So what I want to do is I want to go into curves. I'm just going to pull back the blacks just a touch. And I might push up the mid-tones just a tad. And I might draw back some of the highlights for the sky. So when I'm finished, if I show you the difference, this was our original image. Everything's dark, quite flat in the sky. We've got all the vignetting around the image. Turn this image on, and there you have the final image with not a lot of effort, a few tweaks. We could go in and darken some of these shadows, but I hope that's helped. I hope you've learned a few tips. Well, I hope you learned something there. I hope you picked up a couple of tips. I quite enjoy watching other people edit, because I always pick up tips as I go along as well. Even when you think you've been doing something for a while, there's always something that you pick up from these, and I hope this video has helped you pick up some tips as well. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, please give it a thumbs up, If you haven't subscribed, please do, because you know it's free. And if you press the bell notification, that will let you know the next time I post a video. So thanks very much for watching, and here's to the next video.